to the stage Marpi, David Gryn, and Lynch, and Naut Humon into the stage. And for an exciting excursion into the immersive and augmented realities, discussing how technology alters the way in which we create, consume, and experience art. So please help me welcome them to the stage now.
Greetings, everyone. I'm just gonna. We already have introductions for everyone now, so we're gonna have some good chats about the evolution of digital art and art collecting. So I was gonna throw it to you to start, David. So you've been working in immersive media and video art for a long time, and I'd love to know from you how have people been collecting it, and how are they collecting it now?
So I've been working probably for the last 20 years working with artists moving image, and that started. I was also doing other things in the art world, so I've been very much part of the contemporary art world doing projects. I was an artist, and I came to start doing a whole series of projects in the cinema by default. I wasn't a big fan of digital moving image or any of that kind of work, other than I'm a big fan of what artists do, and I've always been someone who wants to support and empower and market projects, even when they were my own and when I stopped other people's, and spent probably 10, 15 years promoting projects with artists, film through galleries and art fairs, and I ultimately became requested by Art Basel to curate film and then sound for their fair in Miami Beach, and that was on the basis of having a good relationship with galleries and artists worldwide. And from that process, I a few years ago set up my own company called Daata Editions, which was an online platform to commission artists, so that there was some kind of way of evolving a marketplace online, and to try and set in store the idea of commissioning and being able to pay artists and promote them in the way that I do, but in a way that kind of is speaking to a generation currently very much focused online, and in my view how the world is and probably going. However, I was drawn to work with Art Basel because Art Basel approached me that galleries weren't really bringing film and digital media to art fairs because they don't really sell it very easily. And I guess being asked the question about the art market for digital works is always quirky, because I believe there should be a great big one right now because we're all in a digital universe, and yet the art market is trailing far behind. It's sort of catching up. It's sort of it just at the moment everyone still there's sort of different art worlds, so I don't want to kind of like define there's one art world. The one that's connected with the sort of top-end contemporary art galleries and auction houses are probably, in a way, almost the most resistant, because it's very expensive to be involved in having a gallery space and having a booth at an art fair at the likes of Art Basel and Frieze, and galleries need to make a return and need to make money. So the whole system is currently slightly geared towards how do you sell things easily. And digital media is probably, in my view, the easiest thing to sell and to use. It just isn't the collector, the pusher still hasn't found a way to meet fully in the middle. And I guess I've had lots of dialogues over the years with retailers, e-tailers, who probably are pretty sure that the world's changing, that online is going to take over from offline in terms of digital sales, and that's happening in many areas. I think the art world will be catching up fairly soon.
So currently, how would you purchase a piece of an edition of video art from Daata Editions?
It's just designed. I actually had it built from a company that works with some record stores online, and so the idea was to try and set up a website that could be very easy to download, and that was my idea of ephemeral files that you can download and play onto any device. But I still have questions from collectors. Where do I put it? And I don't ever have that problem with that question when I collect music online. So we're still evolving. I think we're going to be evolving for a lot longer, I hope. But it's, I think with digital media, and the change of so many different technologies means that everyone's jumping ahead with sort of the enamor of digital as opposed to the reality of it. So everyone wants to get to the next big thing to find out where they're going to make their billions from. I'm still trying to work out how do artists get paid and how is there a marketplace and a positioning where it isn't just about a kind of the next fad. We're not in a fad moment with digital. It's real, but it feels like a fad when you get into kind of conversations around everything being next, and there's great VR and AR and blockchain projects, but some of them don't even have a market position at all, but one's guessing that there will be one. But anyway.
Cool. Do you guys have any comments on David's answer to the question?
I think digital's been ramping up for a while, and it's taking some time because of the perception of it, and live media versus virtual media and how all the things are being presented. So I think it's still an evolving medium at the present time.
Marpi?
I think in terms of the way the system is set up, it's been like this for a long time, but I think the reason it was set up this way because there was no easy way for the artists to get to their audience easily, which changed right now, because right now, like, you don't need, for most of the art created right now, you can go straight from the artist to any person in the world at any point. You don't need this middleman kind of a step in general. So through this, because anyone can have access to anything that's been pretty much ever created instantly, I think the way or the idea who the collector is, maybe right now anyone is a collector. The same way on Spotify or on Steam or on Mac App Store, people have thousands and thousands of apps, so they do directly support and they collect all of those pieces and directly support the artist. Maybe like everyone is a collector right now.
I'm a big fan of the middleman, being one. I still think there's a filtering system needed. I think the idea that we like to find our news sources from certain respectable news sources, and you want to choose which camp you're in often. I think it's brilliant that we can find anything. I want that world, but I also want to have delineated worlds, so,
But maybe that's the change in the whole media. The same way people move away from TV and choose their own news, choose their own sources. In a way, as anyone interested in art, you have to choose your own artist yourself. You shouldn't rely, in a way, on anyone else, because this is your choice now.
But the art fair and the galleries have been a filtering system. They still have a sense to play. It's just when it becomes dominated by the commodity market end of it, I think that's the problem. And I think they all have to find a way that they come back to being able to show best practice and best art, not what sells the best. Because I think there's a big difference between those.
Yeah, I think this might be the main point. They should make it easier to find right artists, not make it harder.
The art market, I think, is going to resist us for a while longer, but there's a lot of conversations going on. Even right now, there was a conference in Berlin the New York Times had, and that's the art world I'm in. We're all in sort of maybe slightly different areas of art practice and art showing, but actually I suppose, maybe it's an age thing, but I've always felt it, but I feel like I want to empower more, and that means empowering the medium, the artist, and find ways the artist can be supported. If we keep finding ways how you support wealth creation and the wealthy to keep buying this thing. I believe you have to still find the way to get the artist to make it best. I think then it has its own market by default because it's going to be the best practice. Ultimately, there's been this period where we've been kind of creating work to sell easier. And I want it the other way around, to make things aspirational and the artist at the top of the tree, not at the bottom, which it currently is.
Yeah, and the same with the chain, the whole chain. The artist kind of on the end of the chain of the whole process of the whole thing. No, I completely agree.
Yeah, and speaking of projects, what's Queertopia?
That's very kind of you. I know.
But I
Can
think
we
that's
play
something
this?
you were involved with, and
Can
I
we play the
just wanted
trailer?
to...
Yeah, just play the trailer. This was Galten, then I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm curious.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's very quick.
This is my life. This is honey.
So, Queertopia is a project playing the cinema at this art fair, If So What, and it's a compilation of artworks curated by Gemma Rolls-Bentley, who curated it for my platform Daata Editions. They're all available online to either view or acquire, but the idea, this is an exhibition of the work in the cinematic setting, and it's the kind of thing I do often with projects, is really, how do you get to talk about it? If it's online, I have no idea of feedback and reaction, so I try and do projects with data in different places worldwide so that it's physical as well. And Gemma works with Artsy, and she works with Gay Times, and she actually introduced me to So, who runs this fair, and I said if we end up working together, me and So, that I'll be delighted to have her to curate for Daata, and she's done it wonderfully. And it's my son Jacob did the trailer, and it's very fun to see. So that's Queertopia is online on Daata Editions.
Oh, thank you.
So, Marpi, I wanted to have you talk about your installation here briefly and how you think people could collect that in the future. Or do you think it's collectible, or how would it be collectible?
Okay, that's I don't know, because it's still pretty far in the future, and right now it's still. So looking at this, I think working on something new, it's as exciting it is. Obviously, it has its trickier sides, especially figuring out how it fits and how it will fit eventually in some sort of a history. I always try to look forward how it will, in the future, how they were going to write about it. That said, I do tour with most of those pieces. So I think I come and I take a lot from the music industry. The way whenever you create music, you actually do a lot of, so it's less about collection of it, it's more about traveling and doing all the shows in all the different places, and it's kind of infinitely scalable. Again, if you use Spotify, if you use SoundCloud, all this stuff, you can reach all your audience pretty much instantly. And I think something similar is going to happen with digital art. And I think what's been really big in art collection in general is what was limiting kind of the art. So the limited editions, the installation, the scale, and the cost of making, which again doesn't apply to pretty much any of the digital art. Creating one version versus thousands of versions, it costs me nothing. Currently, some of my pieces are on display here and in Turkey and in Shanghai. I don't even have to go there. I literally send them a link. They download everything, they install everything. It's infinitely scalable, so I can run multiple shows in multiple places. I can release a piece in multiple countries at the same time. And also in terms of collecting it, there's no reason for me to make it limited, because it doesn't cost me anything to make more editions. It will be literally just limiting the art. Only 100 people can play it at the same time, which I don't have to do. Since it's infinitely scalable, anyone could have access to it, which at the end of the day, as an artist, I just want anyone to be able to enjoy it. And if someone wants to buy it, it doesn't make sense to lock it and like not show it anywhere else. I can make them a custom version. I can make them a version that actually fits in the room or in their house or in their building, wraps around 5 walls, couple screens, and like basically create a new piece for them.
Interesting. So I think you've had some requests here today or this week about people wanting to put this installation in their homes. So would you entertain that?
I'll follow up on all the emails, yes. I think it's an interesting idea because I'm open to any way. The same as making music. It's you don't want to limit people how or when or why they should enjoy it. They should be able to access it however they want, in whatever way they want to do it. And if they would like the same, if you're a band, you get requests to make a song for a company, for a person, whatever, custom shows, all this stuff. So the same way I can create something new based on, if someone likes a certain artwork, I can make them a custom new version that's one of this and give it to them.
So, Naut, I was going to ask you about, the history of Recombinant Media Labs and the Cinechamber, and how that is, how you've come across people wanting to collect it or show it, and what you think what's going to happen in the future with that.
Right. Well, there's quite a story that goes back many decades, and it all has to do with being an art law. And
An art law.
An art law, okay? Because some people have the different frameworks about how they deal with art and all this kind of thing. There's a few pictures. This is our immersive apparatus or structure called the Cinechamber. So this evolved in the 2000s, and basically it's VR mindset without the headset. So it involves a full use of panorama of many screens, coming from the whole idea. You were talking about cinema earlier, and this is spatial cinema, which came back in decades previous from spatial sound, multiple sources of sound being manipulated as an instrument. So this room is an instrument that can be experientially archived. We're talking about the idea of collecting or putting things on, whether it's staging it or seeing it like a museum or just going in there and experiencing the whole thing. So these are what we call experiential archives, and we have many artists from all over the world. This is Egbert Mittelstadt from Germany. He's working with Biosphere. And they come from a number of weeks to do a residency and, sort of map out their territory and things like that. And the reason we chose the 360 environment was that you could use the room as an instrument in many different ways. So they come for several weeks and then try things out in front of an audience. And then eventually this whole apparatus is now in Europe and California. It's been up in Canada at different festivals and things like this.
Is it up permanently anywhere?
No, it was up permanently. This picture is from a permanent facility that we had in San Francisco back in the mid-2000s when we had our whole spatial cinema set up. And now the idea was, instead of everyone having to come to America and just come to a location, the idea was to make it mobile, agile, so they can move around to different festivals and installations worldwide. And they can be screenings or live performances with audiences and things like that. Is there another slide here? I don't know how you have it all set up here. Yeah, go to that one, the keynote. Yeah, that one. Okay. Okay, just start at the top. I don't know where you're starting from, but that would help in explaining all of this briefly. I don't see anything because go to the second picture down. Okay. This is from the beginning. I don't come from digital media or any of those types of things. This is a shot taken back in 1969 after a show that we did back then. This is all about immersive behavior. So this was a room that the audience had gone into. It was called Dancing on Dead Rock, and it was a Everybody back in the late 60s and early 70s was doing light shows. So instead, we were here in San Francisco at some flexible theater speed. We wanted to do a dark show. And the audience climbs in, crawls through tunnels, and then goes into a giant room, which you see the remnants of afterwards. And of course, the audience is buried underneath the refuse that you see here. But these were early beginnings of what today is called immersive theater, taking the audience through many different environments. And of course, we didn't have video or the internet and all this technology, so we created these environments which utilized different formations in different places. We had factories, you know, with the audience being put in crates down conveyor belts, using buses and boats for all these types of transport and mobilization events, so the audience would move through various buildings or stages around. And that led into the acquisition of applying, you know, audio and visual technology that was emerging in the 70s, et cetera, et cetera. So this whole philosophy, now you can move ahead to the next picture. Hello? No. Anyway, there. Into the idea of what turned into spatial cinema later on. This is the sound traffic control tower. Oh, really? Okay. This is the sound traffic control tower, where the audience, like passengers on an imaginary runway between the musical trajectories. And we would build various formations of this over the years. I don't know how this works, but okay. Next photo. I don't know how this remote works.
Technology.
Yeah, technology. This is an installation that we did in Japan where we actually built a sonic airport called Sound Traffic Control. And next slide, please. We expanded upon the concept. So each column here is 16 speakers, adding up to about 800 speakers in a giant auditorium. And we built the sound traffic control tower and performed with a woman named Mary Ann Amiche and others over in Japan. And this is where the audience can kind of roam, like passengers on an imaginary runway between the musical cargoes and things that would land and taxi and take off during these events. So this led, in terms of the spatial sound thing, into next slide, into the formation in the mid-2000s of the actual Cinechamber itself. Most festivals have rectangular rooms, so we wanted to fashion it, not just having domes, which are more expensive, but something that artists could come into and do screenings or live performances. Next slide. So this is us in Austria with the structure, with the Cinechamber. Next slide. And in Berlin. So this is at the CTM Festival, which goes on for many weeks. The audience sets up in a different location, puts together their material, and then we present it live during the festival. Next slide. Next slide. And these are just impressions or pictures from the artworks that the artists were involved with. Next slide. Here it is in San Francisco, where we set it up at the Gray Area Foundation of the Arts. And next year in 2019, we're going to be bringing the Cinechamber back. And many new pieces have been done. Last year was all world premieres, and we show things from 5, 10, and 20 years ago. So going into this idea of experiential archiving, you know, collecting that, we can play things that were made 12 or 15 years ago, and the audience can come in, and they didn't miss the show. In other words, we preserve all of the elements as sort of a collection of pieces.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Can you cue the augmented reality video? That'd be great. So just next door here is an augmented reality sculpture garden. It's a co-creation between Lynchini, Seafire, and Unclu. And there you can actually purchase augmented reality sculptures and get a crypto token for it. So we're going to play a little video that takes you through the space, and it'll open here. I think it's either open now or another hour. Go ahead and play it. So we've got 4 different artists that have contributed. Fiona Tan, Gabriel Dunn, Enclu did one, as well as Corwin Bell. Actually, there's 5 Virtue Labs. They're the ones that are up
I'm recording
high.
video right now.
So this one right here is the one I purchased, the first edition of that, which is Gabriel Dunn's Ribbon. So for the future of digital art collecting, I see it going this way, where people could buy these sculptures and place them in their homes or businesses and trade them. Enclu's actually built a platform just for that. So if you have time, please go over and check that out. It's a really interesting installation. So at this point, do you guys have any comments on any of this stuff? Or so I'm going to turn it over to questions to the audience here in a bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah? Cool.
Hi, question for David. So two-part question. With regard to Daata Editions, who are the collectors that are buying work on your platform? Like, what are their demographics? And
What are they?
you're the collectors that are buying work on your platform. Like, what are their demographics? What do they look like? And the second part of the question is, for the collectors that say to you, where do I put this? What do you say back to them?
I try not to be rude on the second question, but it's not. It's really. I mean, I'm not really rude. I just try and say you can download it onto any device, but even that can sometimes be hard. It's usually the people who are the ones from the first question get it because they're the ones who buy it. And so far, there have been generally people who are pretty much passionate video art collectors. There's a sort of breed, but there's also a few great collectors of all forms of art, and there's probably the audience that I'm sort of almost at most inspired by, because they actually really also care about artists and the art world, and they're not, a real great collector will not just be interested in how great their collection is, they're interested in the ecosystem and how you support, and they can see what's going on with new technologies, but that's few. The people aren't generally going to be buying work online who are looking for some kind of deep investment. I start off at $100, but I've had sales to big collectors like Julia Stoschek in Germany, who has a great collection, the Zabradovich collection in London, and others, and also the Hammer Museum acquired most of the work. And I mean, quirky things happen, like the Hammer came to me and said, how can we have an archive of I gave them all on a hard drive, the whole collection that they acquired, and they wanted the archive copy, and I don't have an archive backup copy. I just duplicated what I already gave them, because museums and institutions are pretty old school generally when I talk to them, and it's not because of some of the people who work there are really forward-thinking, but the system it operates in, they have systems around historic ways of collecting, so they haven't really evolved. And we have that problem where we haven't really evolved as to how people often buy the work and don't know what to do with it on their screen, whereas we all generally know what to do with a screen. If you want to play music or have a video playing all day, we know how to do that generally. But when it comes to art ownership, there's a lot of stumbling blocks. People want to keep it rare, keep it unique. Why have I bought this and I'm playing it all day on my screen? It doesn't sort of add up to some people. Whereas others who collect seem to get it. And that's, I'm not thinking that the art market needs to have, I don't believe it's ever going to have billions and trillions of people, like the music and film world. I think it's a rarefied industry. I just like the idea that more people can access it and be paid for doing it. And I believe there's next generations of ability to do stuff with it.
I wanted to add, do you do editions, like limited, like say, okay, I'm going to make X amount of copies. Sometimes it's 5 or 6, sometimes it's more. You charge for each item. There's also an online gallery, amongst others, one in the UK called Sedition, that sells artworks that go up in value, like stocks, except, it increases over time and so forth. So, and then when it's folks like Christian Marclay and people that do stuff in museums, they get a high dollar price. Except sometimes you're just buying a hard drive, you know, or purchasing that kind of thing. So it comes in different formats and things like that in these kind of edition-oriented sales.
I mean, I'm doing it like you described.
Yeah.
And that's a process. I decided we're going to set up a model that we can set up, but not the model. One of the things you get with, I mean, it's a bigger point I'm going to make, but it's with digital, you get everyone wanted to discover the wheel, and the idea that .com businesses can be the unique next Google and Facebook. I'm interested in how do you set up something that can be part of a collective community of businesses, so you have competition, not to try and set up something that takes over the world. And I think we need more of that, because it's how sort of the .com revolution has happened, is that's how you make the businesses work, by having in the investment scalability. I'm interested in how do you scale a business by supporting the infrastructure. The building bricks of what I do is by supporting artists. And I can only support a finite number of artists. So I need many businesses to be similar to mine, not identical, who might have different editioning or different ways of selling or not selling. Some do rental models. There's Electronic Arts Intermix, and they do rental model. They've been in existence for 40 years or more. And it's... There has to be different models, but because of the .com revolution, I'm calling it, I don't know why I'm calling it revolution, but revelation, it seems to be driven still by how much money the people around it are going to make. And like we're having this conversation currently around blockchain, and I'm hosting with Ace Hotels next week a conference on it, but I made it clear that I want to do it if we can find a way to empower artists. So I'm commissioning an artist who's working with the idea of blockchain, and I want to make sure that that's my standpoint, and hopefully I can utter things that other people can emulate or share. And a lot of people get then confused because they keep saying when you talk about blockchain, they use the word Bitcoin. And when you start using a word like Bitcoin, you start thinking about currency. And I'm still thinking about how do artists make things so that we can sell them or show them. And that, I guess, is this sort of confusion hemispheres we're in, because how do you survive, how do you exist, and how do you find ways to generate... I mean, we all do different things, and there needs to be support for it, otherwise it wouldn't happen. But it's a question.
I think also on this you touched on an interesting subject, because like, as an artist, and pretty much most of my artist friends, like the reason we started doing all of this is to be free. Is to be free from all of the systems, so we can just do whatever we want to do and hopefully do it in a sustainable way. The main change right now, again, is we've got direct access to all our followers and anyone that's interested in our art, and we can share it with them instantly, or pretty much before even we make it. We share the whole process. They see every step of the process of us making it and the actual artwork. The problem is with the payment, like how would we have it in a sustainable way? But there are upcoming platforms like Patreon, like stuff like this, where people that enjoy our art, they can directly support it on a monthly basis. So we've got anyone in the world can subscribe to, I don't have one yet, but to lots of my friends, they can subscribe and pay them a monthly.
Marpi, what was the name of that platform? Sorry.
Patreon.
Patreon?
Yes.
Cool.
So the actual platform was started by musicians. There was a famous group that's been like basically, they had bad experience with multiple record labels, and also they started with YouTube and more independent platforms trying to make a living, which at some point they were between a choice of either not getting paid at all, or trying to do some advertising or product placement, all this other stuff, which both of the options don't make sense. So what they did, they started a platform when, as a person, anyone, you can support on different tiers. You can support any artist you like, and you get their process videos, the artworks, everything directly for you for a monthly fee. So this, I think, similar to as many, especially in Bay Area, but as many startups and all the new ideas, everything right now is about simplifying, making things more direct and generally win-win scenarios.
Cool. Another question?
So I just wanted to ask, on one hand, it seems digital art is becoming easily democratizable, spread around the world on an individual consumption basis. On the other hand, I want to know, what do you think, how is digital art being integrated into the corporate world? You see, like, this Porsche has art on it, all the big brands are incorporating art as statements about their company or their brand. How do you see opportunities for digital art within that world?
I think this is a really good thing that happened in the recent couple years. For the longest time, brands would take artists and force them to work on their random products and make custom version of a bottle or something like this, which doesn't really make sense. It's not fun for artists. It's not fun for people following the artist or the brand, and the advertising agency or whoever runs it. They have to really figure out how to wrap it and make it, follow the idea and the brand and everything. What happened recently, brands and pretty much any bigger commercial businesses, and also cities, they started supporting artists directly as well. So if you look at the latest Apple commercial, what it is, it's showing 5 artworks by random Instagram artists, without any tie to the brand, just cool, great-looking art with the Apple logo in the end. It's a clear message, and first, artists get paid. Artists get to show their work around, and the company doesn't force them to do anything. So the artist wins, company wins, and the audience get to see cool art.
I think that's a trend right now too. With what San Francisco has been doing with their art program, where if you've got a big lobby like the Salesforce lobby, they can't have overt branding on it. It's got to be art, which is, I think it's great. It's a great thing.
I've had in the last few years multiple dialogues with big brands. And I think I've got a really clear message when I meet with companies now, is that if we can find a way to pay artists, then it's okay, I can find a way to work with them. But often they keep saying, well, artists do it for free because we're such a big brand. It's great exposure, which is the sort of common nonsense you keep having evolved, where companies keep thinking it's a really good service to artists by showing their work on the wall and everyone's going to buy it because they've seen it. It doesn't work that way. Artists doesn't sell by magic, and art doesn't sell easily when it's on show. I mean, if Apple are paying, I love that, but people don't usually go into Apple to buy art. So there's a problem. You have people, there's a real reason why they go into Apple. So the current phenomenon with corporate businesses, they're looking for entertainment to sort of fill the world and the void of where people aren't actually buying anything within stores. And I think there's an opportunity. I just think it has to be structured better, and those businesses understand what value artists bring to them, not that they're the sort of lowest end of the chain that just dresses their shop for fun. Because and I think it could change. I worry. I mean, I had a company a few years ago wanted me to provide Daata Editions for all their desktops in San Francisco, a new startup. And they said everyone's going to have it on the screensavers like you have from Sedition. And I don't have anything called screensavers because I didn't like that word. I feel like I have works of art and I don't really want to call that. But they said everyone's going to be looking at it on their desk and they'll buy it. I said, well, I don't think so. They're just going to probably carry on working on their computers. And to me, that's I think that bit is evolving. I think there's good wisdom-filled companies, but they're fewer and far between.
But I think also with this, if you think of the scale with this is just a really small scale. Right now, every building that's being built has a huge LED wall. Every bridge is... Suddenly, all the surfaces you see around you in the cities, not only certain buildings, the whole neighborhoods, will have shared screens across the whole thing, and this will all be filled with art.
Also, there's a different model, just to get into a couple different areas. The energy drink company, Red Bull Music Academy, is a corporate entity. And what they've chosen to do, it's kind of a new type of label, because we're all used to record labels of the last number of decades and the way they do business, and you sign up with them and so forth. But Red Bull is seeking out a lot of artists who can sign up for the Red Bull Academy and be able to do performances, which are subsidized by Red Bull at festivals, at different things. As some of you already know, Red Bull does a lot of stuff in sports. So they've applied some of that philosophy to music and some arts, the way they're doing it. And some people are interested in this. So if they, for instance, if a group wants to make a record, they have studios in different cities around the world. They set up entire months where artists from different locales, plus people that they fly in, can also appear. And they're under that sort of Red Bull logo, but they want to actually give subsidy and opportunities for artists to perform and to do different things. So to me, it's a new kind of label, even though Red Bull doesn't really say they're a label, but I kind of look at it that way as sort of a distant cousin of that. And how, going to your question, how sort of the corporate thing is trying to support the culture in different types of ways, which legitimizes them, but also gives a certain profile. And some artists are interested in this, or they're seeking out a lot of stuff. And they have pretty big offices in many countries.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you all for being here and making your art. I love the Cinechamber. I did see it at Great Area, so awesome work. Not Human. Can you guys hear me okay?
Well, there's a whole lot of artists involved in that.
Well, I mean, you're the face of it. You're the hype man out talking about it, so thank you and your band of merry men and women. I wanted to ask you more about the AR sculptures and how one would collect that. Like, how does that work? Can you say more about that?
Sure. So if you purchase it, you would get a crypto token from Unclu and a perpetual software license on their platform, where you could then take the sculpture and HoloLens, or they're planning on being hardware agnostic, of course, and then place it somewhere in your home, or you don't necessarily have to show it. You could just download the file and keep it to yourself and keep the crypto token. So yeah, that's the plan.
So in terms of showing it in the home, how would I do that if it's AR triggered by the HoloLens? So I'm not.
So you can do it with the HoloLens.
But if I don't have the HoloLens or don't want to use HoloLens, do I just use my cell phone or?
They're going to have an app out in about 2 weeks to do the same thing.
Via
You'll be able to use your phone.
Okay.
Yep. Or iPad or anything with that capability.
And then when you said a license for the software, help me to understand. So I would own it via the license, or am I sort of like a shareholder in the art ecosystem of Unclu?
So you can do either. If you don't want to participate on the Unclu platform, you can just buy the sculpture and use it on a different platform. There's tons of emerging platforms right now for this. Theirs is very good. So yeah, you could go either way.
Thank you.
The piece I just bought just the piece. So of course, the Unclu people are my friends, so I'm going to use it on their platform as well. But that's how I started, and I just started collecting digital art yesterday, so it's new to me too.
We have time for one more question. Does anybody have any other questions? Sure.
My question's for David. Can you tell us about your artist curation process for Daata Editions? Is there a certain type of artist that might grasp the concept of limited editions, or do you face challenges with some artists explaining the value of digital editions?
I don't have a problem. It's more the... Okay, so really just to answer, it's a sort of ecosystem of, artists that are sort of, I know, I work with, I have a business partner who's a very big art collector, seed funder to the business, so therefore I have generally a way of being able to pay artists up front. And between us and other artists, collectors, galleries, art fair people who are friends, there's a conversation and we get to hear who are the artists that might be interested. I mean, obviously as it's evolved, I have now artists who want to be on the platform, but there's a sort of finite budget to pay, so it's not like I can pay everyone I like. There's generally, I've got enough artists who want to be doing it, so it's not usually a problem because they can see how it works. I try and maintain a transparency of how it does work. So I haven't got so the way we price work is pretty flat. I've, for instance, working with artist Tracy Emin, who's paid the same as young emerging artists, and price points are sold at the same price point. So even though prices go up as works sell out, that's across the platform. It's not per artist who's the most successful or who's the most... Well, obviously, as the price, as they sell out, that's successful on the platform. But I didn't want to have a price point that said Tracy Emin is worth so much more than artist B, because it just felt like I don't want to start creating that sort of... Otherwise, I'm only going to start having big name artists, and then I'm not empowering a younger group of artists who need a foothold. So I like to have a mix, and I do that even with any projects I do. I like to try and have artists who are just setting out and also artists who are pretty established, because I think that the two together create a great synergy. I think that's the answer. There might be a concern. It's just not my concern. So I know that sounds a bit of a crass answer. I can't think of every answer in setting up something. It's a bit like, I'm currently talking about doing AR, VR, blockchain projects, and things are evolving. How I think about... I'm not actually interested in the secondary market, but we have a process where if somebody wants to sell something online, they have to do it via our platform, but we don't make a cut or anything, but you have to transfer the work via an email address. So that's there's a kind of way I deal with it, but it's not, whether people want to buy and exchange goods and make money out of them, I'm not that interested, because ultimately it's very hard for the artist to carry on benefiting. And actually everything on Data is visible to everyone throughout the whole work. So you don't have to buy the work to look at it.
Awesome. Well, let's give these gentlemen a round of applause. Thank you so much.